retarded, they are people. They come in both sexes and in all sizes, shapes, creeds, and colors. Wherever people live, there also live the mentally retarded.
You dumb, lard-ass, ludtard morons. You still don't get that the answer is the communication of spiritual knowledge and the communication of natural law and objective morality to the mindless, fucktard, zombie horde masses of this fucking planet.
Good morning, world, or good evening, world. This is the Great Retardation. I am your co-host, the Arabian Pleb, and with me is my other fabulous, beautiful co-host, Cosmic Surfer. This is Chronicle number 9. How are you, Cosmic Surfer, for this Chronicle number 9? Oh, sorry, dude. Sorry. I had you muted. Sorry, let me start again. Let me just ask that again. I'm fully retarded. How are you, Cosmic Surfer? How are you, brother? You're now unmuted.
I'm all right, mate. I'm chugging through life. Great to be on the most suppressed podcast on the internet. It's great to be back. Just chugging through life, mate. Ready to talk about natural law, go through it, take everyone on the journey with us. This is a learning experience. We are definitely on the path, but we are not the ones with all of the answers. And one of the important steps is realizing that we are wrong and looking in the mirror, doing some self-reflection, doing some shadow work, mate. Mark Cassio, guy we refer to a lot, is running a course in November, so get on that. And doing the hard yards, mate. So yeah, one of the things we talked about last week was to do actually this escapes me, but yeah, been learning a little bit about worldview healing in the last week, and so that's one of Passio's lectures around number 88 or so, and and so one of the parts around that is kind of letting go of incorrect information and all that kind of thing. So yeah, been learning a little bit about that. And wanted to pick up a few of the conversations from last week as well. So I've got some things to share on that. Been watching some Whitney Webb in the last week as well. She went on Abby Martin and Rob Martin's podcast, talking about the rebranding of the oligarchs. And I think a lot of people are falling for the Elon Musk, kind of version of it. And as Catherine Austin Fitz would say as well, he's there to sell this kind of new form of, technocracy and, Curtis Yarvin and all that. He's mentored a lot of these people like Peter Thiel. And so, what we've got basically what is being implemented is this kind of global gov-corp technate system, which they want to rebrand as not being run by the nation state. So they'll sell it as being efficient with things like Doge, because, we need to everyone wants a smaller government and, the fat cats and all of that kind of thing. But what they really are doing is, installing this, more efficient, CEO style version of running this global governance system. But they sell it with things like efficiency. They running it like a business, and all of these things that are meant to kind of get on the more libertarian kind of a person over into the conversation. but really what it is setting up these technocratic systems of surveillance. So that's where you get the likes of Palantir, which is obviously part of InQtel, the total information awareness from the CIA, and rebranded as this private company. And then so you have you know, Elon Musk getting into Doge, and then, doing fundraising, and fundraising at the same time as getting access to the data. And you can't like 100% prove that through Doge he got that data, but it is at the same time that they start to make those partnerships with Palantir and XAI, and he does want to have, you know, basically like a large portion of the world's payment system, to do with that. And all these kind of same topics keep circling around, so there's a lot of dots to connect here. And so I'm kind of going on a bit of a rant, but it's clear that from listening to Whitney Webb again, that she's not impressed by these people, like even the guy that went on the Joe Rogan Experience kind of recently, the tech guy, his name is the bald fella, and the name will come to me in a second. But yeah, she's, one of the podcasts that we didn't record early on was connecting around Whitney Webb's work, and going back to the mafia and the mob and these kind of criminal organizations like organized crime, and going back to before the formation of the IDF and these kind of organizations. And so it's kind of giving more breadth to the argument, I guess. So I'll pause and swing it your way, but that's some of the stuff that I've been across, along with getting through the second symposium on the bio-digital convergence with Catherine Austin Fitz has with David Hughes and Patrick Webb and those guys, and all of the technology that's involved with that. So that's some of the stuff that I've been across in the last week.
Mad, bro. Sounds like you've been doing deep dives. And yeah, Whitney Webb, like, you introduced me to her work. I remember when you first showed me her website, Unlimited Hangout, and I listened to some of her recent podcasts at that time, and saying to you, oh my God, she's like the female Scott Horton. Just like super thorough, super diligent, very well researched, quite literally an expert, has been there for Douglas Murray. She has been there and she is an expert. But a stupid reference. Douglas Murray's a stupid person. But yeah, so and she was calling out the PayPal mafia, Elon Musk and all these guys before Donald Trump even got elected. And then as soon as he got elected, just like, yeah, just going like, yeah, nothing's going to change. This whole thing's going to be a fucking scam to empower and enrich the PayPal mafia and further solidify Palantir's stranglehold over the intelligence aspect and data collection and that sort of warfare. And yeah, like, it's just, I think it's pretty obvious now for anyone who has half a brain and has been following Trump's, first 150 days or whatever it is in power, that the creation of Doge, the supposed Department of Government Efficiency, headed up by Elon Musk, and in the early days it was Vivek Ramaswamy as well, but he bailed on it pretty quickly, probably saw the writing on the wall, that Doge has been a massive failure. It hasn't lived up to the promises and the claims that they were making of cutting $2 trillion from the federal budget. They tinkered around the edges with a couple of little things, and they did expose USAID, which I do appreciate, because that was a front for CIA shenanigans all around the world, with color revolutions in Russia's near abroad, overthrowing, meddling in the elections of Georgia, Uzbekistan, Ukraine, Kyrgyzstan, just, the list goes on, and then in the Middle East as well. So that was good. That was good that more people were waking up to that fact of USAID's corruption and the CIA shenanigans. But other than that, there was no positives that came from it, and it really just turned into a massive fast. So yeah, what a fucking epic failure. And Whitney Webb, God bless her, was calling it out from the very beginning. So that's my thoughts,
Yeah, I
bro.
mean, people. I mean, I obviously agree with you that people. I don't necessarily know if people see it that way. If I'm being honest, like even I saw today, Ashton Forbes, who we're a fan of, his work specifically on MH370. But like everything, like certain people are good on certain things and not others. But yeah, he's talking about like, oh, good on you, Elon Musk, for scaring them and getting some stuff done and all of that. And it's not just him; it's like a lot of people. And I know that there's a lot of narrative control going on X, but and this is what Webb touched on as well. There's just just everyone like fighting for some kind of attention from Elon Musk, like him saying good or it's like something like that. And we also touched last week on people that just don't want to call out this kind of clearly not libertarian behavior, but essentially it's essentially neocons selling themselves as libertarian principles while just bringing death and destruction. And so there's a
That is the neocon way.
yeah, and and that's there was a few kind of tidbits in what I was listening to with Whitney, and one of them was the guy that took over the Intercept, which I did look up again. I kept forgetting the guy's name. Uh,
And just for those that don't know, The Intercept is the publication that Glenn Greenwald and others co-founded.
yeah, so Pierre Omidyar, that's who she was referring to. Webb talked about her and the intelligence connections there as well.
Wow.
And then I was mentioning to you before we got on that Glenn Greenwald in himself is I don't think he's had the nicest things to say about Webb. So and then neither of the Weinsteins as well because they do the whole black plane thing on her. I think and interestingly the Epstein list came from Epstein's butler, and he was going to sell it to Epstein victims' lawyers, and the FBI got wind of it, and the guy ended up in jail and dying.
What a coincidence. What an
Yeah,
astonishing, tragic series of events that
yeah,
couldn't possibly have any shenanigans going on whatsoever.
yeah, and it was during the Obama years, I believe. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of we've talked about this a lot, but I'm actually considering going back, maybe even with you and doing a chapter by chapter review because there's a lot of big facts in it, and maybe even I'm just kind of talking out the side of my mouth a little bit, but we could even do an episode per chapter or something because
On Whitney Webb's books?
yeah,
Oh, it's so
yeah,
worth it, dude. Like, honestly, read. So it's a 2-part series, One Nation Under Blackmail, and as Cosmic Surfer mentioned at the top there, that she really goes through the whole history of the creation of the intelligence agencies as we know them today. So the precursor to the CIA was the OSS, the Operation of Special Services, I believe that's what the acronym means. And then there was a few other like more fragmented, whatever, like preludes or whatever, like before then it was all centralized into the Central Intelligence Agency. So yeah, she really goes through, and then the organized crime aspect of it all, the fact that they heavily recruited from convicted criminals and mafia, like Jewish mafia mob members and Italian mob members. Just incredible. And then the second, so that's the first book, like going through all that history pretty much up to, I believe, like pretty much up to like Jeffrey Epstein, like the 70s, 80s when he really starts, kicking off. And then the second book is really like Jeffrey Epstein, Leslie Wexner, and so on and so forth into the modern day, Powell and Thiel, all that stuff. Yeah. I'd love to do that, man. That would actually,
yeah.
that'd really interest me. Fuck the audience. I'd be keen.
Yeah, well, I think that's I'm kind of we're still finding our feet a little bit, and there's a few themes that are popping up. One is the thoroughness of journalistic investigation and, the attribution to the people doing the work. And, I know that Whitney was, I mean, I'm not sure if she was pissed, maybe she was, but, Ian Carroll, going on Joe Rogan and essentially just like using her work to get on Joe Rogan. No, he's not doing just that. He was doing his own work separately to that, his own investigations. But part of it's like, why not just have Whitney Webb on to talk about her own work? Um, but yeah, I guess part of me, I don't know why I mentioned that. I guess, the kind of, there's a few themes coming up with these researchers, and, whether it's Whitney Webb or, dark journalists. I mean, I've got some disagreements there with him. You know, in different fields, they've both gone through the past 100 years, and there's so much dovetailing with a lot of these subjects. And Stephen Greer has done something similar with the documentary 100 Years of Lost Technology. I'm not sure if you saw that one or not.
No, I haven't seen
Um,
that, but I remember watching Stephen Greer back in the day, dude. Like, so I was probably 2021, like first really getting into conspiracy rabbit holes and aliens and UFOs and ancient civilizations and whatever else. And I came across Stephen Greer, dude, and I remember. Sorry, this is a bit of a digression, but just thought I'd mention it. But I remember showing my mate, so my friend who I grew up with, who I do respect, but he's very much like I'd say he's like a real liberal, like in the kind of American idea of the term, like a real liberal college kind of guy. Like he was, studying for a long time. He's a school teacher now. But I remember him just like going off him. He's like, how can you listen to this? This dude doesn't know what he's talking about. There's nothing that, he can't point to any evidence for all this sort of stuff, whatever. And I was so young that I didn't know any better. I was just like, I don't know, dude. Like he's just saying stuff and it sounds pretty compelling to me. But and then I remember the computer, like I had a hard drive with all these documentaries that I'd downloaded off YouTube and whatever, the things that I thought were fascinating. And the hard drive shat itself. So then hadn't heard that guy's name until we started listening to Ashton Forbes. And you mentioned this Stephen Greer, and I remember I Googled him like recently. I was like, oh, that's that dude. That's the dude I was listening to like 17 years ago.
yeah, I mean, it's with all of these things and people that I've mentioned as well. This is also a conversation I've been having elsewhere as well. But it's like part of it is like the people that have got a lot of this information. Some of them can be a bit as and it's about getting the quality of the information right. That's what really matters. And but they can be a real turnoff because some of these guys are like hugely like egocentric, kind of like narcissistic personality types as well. You know, um, and in a different field, Ben Davison, he's someone that I've met as well. Like, because I went over to the conference in 2018, Observing the Frontier conference, and he does a lot of the hardcore science on the magnetic pole flip, and that's who Catherine Austin Fitz was referring to when she was on the Tucker Carlson interview talking about geophysical risks and that kind of thing. That was his work for the most part, even though there's other people. Um, but like listening to him, man, is just like it's challenging because it's and Greer's another one of those people, and I've got time for these people because I also know that they're in fields where they're getting a lot of pushback, and that can really harden you because you just want to go in there and be like, "Shut the fuck up, you loser! Like you don't know what you're talking about." But you just, if you just like want to chill and put on a video and learn some stuff about whatever's going on, and you just like it's like, oh, like some of it can be hard to handle. And like Passio is another one that kind of, and he almost like kind of taught this lesson in a way, and I know I'm referring to him a lot, but he's not in that ego state. But at the same time when he's screaming and like doing like rage-filled stuff, it's like, if you just like in bed and just want to kind of like learn some stuff and just chill or whatever people are doing, he's just like screaming.
He is not the guy to listen to if you're 30 minutes away from trying to sleep.
But like it's not for the same reasons. But again, this is why like like a couple of episodes ago I was talking about, because sometimes when you mention people, it's like, oh, like, do you listen to that guy? And it's like, actually that person really knows that thing like an expert. So if you don't want to get dating advice from him while he goes on rants about women or something, like referring to Ben Davidson or whatever it is, it's like, I'm there for the magnetic pole flip information. I'm not there listening to him talking about his wife or whatever, or ex-wife now. or this Homath channel that he listens to. That's an actual channel.
What'd you say there?
There's a channel called Homath.
What does that even mean? I've never heard that word before.
Like hoe, as in you're a hoe?
Oh, math. I thought you said home, like Home. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Homath. Right. There probably is a math equation to these hoes. I'm sure there is.
That's actually what he breaks. That's the kind of stuff that he breaks down to do with like dating world stuff.
Oh, okay. How old is this guy? Do you know?
Middle age, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't. Yeah, I haven't.
No, that's all right. I'm sorry to put you on the spot there, but yeah, no, that's funny, dude. Yeah. Well, that's the thing, man. It's like that's kind of one of the libertarian insights, just from an economic understanding, is that like specialization is it's just how we all are. Like everyone kind of specializes. No one can do everything. There's a really good example that breaks this this economic fact down, which is it's called iPencil. It was like a little pamphlet. I can't remember who wrote it. I could probably look it up, but iPencil. And the whole premise of the book is that that there's not one person in the world who knows how to make a pencil or who is capable of making a pencil by himself. And like, just to break it down, like, and this is just like something so basic as a pencil, something that like probably costs, like less than $1 to just buy a single pencil, maybe a little bit more now with inflation, but it's something that like if you saw it on the street, you'd literally just walk over it. You wouldn't even bother picking it up. You know what I mean? Like that's how efficient and how well we've done it, like getting the cost down to producing pencils that no one even gives two rats about, and there's not a lot of value there. But what goes into making a pencil is like you've got the timber. Well, how do you get the timber? Well, you need big machines to rip down trees. Well, how do you make big machines? Well, you got to get steel and someone who knows how to produce a big machine using steel and whatever else. So how do you get the steel? Well, you got to have another big machine to rip the fucking shit out of the ground. Well, how do you do? You know what I mean? So, and we're just talking about the timber. That's just the timber aspect. Then you've got the graphite. What used to be lead, now it's graphite. How do you get the graphite out of the ground? We need some big, massive machine. Well, how do you produce the big, massive machine to get the graphite out of the ground? Well, you've got, it just goes on and on. The rubber. How do you get the rubber little eraser for the end of it? It's, fucking, and then the little bit of metal that holds the rubber on the end of the pencil. Anyway, without going on and on and on, but you get my point that like there's so many things that we just take for granted that people specialize in that all come together in this like really, like if you really think about it, like this beautiful way where it's all just people cooperating and just, voluntary exchange, whatever else, that come to be able to produce something as simple as a pencil that we wouldn't even give two rats about. But if you were to try and do that by yourself, it would be impossible. It would literally be impossible. And then so think about other things that are far more complex. So yeah, so just the point of specialization. Like someone like say Stephen Greer, for example, or Mark Passio. Well, I think Mark Passio is pretty unique, and Whitney Webb, I would say too. But even there would be areas that they, that other people would know better. That they're not so strong
within
on,
that. Yeah, well, that's correct, and also part of it is about that trivium and quadrivium process so you can get good at finding people that are great sources of information so you can process it and learn for yourself as well. And then also about people not having the skills. Part of this process that we're going through is also learning how to have hands-on skills for yourself as well. And I can be better at that. We can all be better at different things as well. Because and that's why I've been doing bushcraft for the last handful of years or whatever. And kind of, even though I'm only like learning a bit, I'm not doing it like a lot. It's like one of those things that I've identified as like one of those keystone habits, because so much of it comes from it, like being in nature, seeing the different seasons, learning about plants, learning about weeds, learning about, how to survive in different events and those kind of things. And, you know, yeah. And so again, that kind of, you mentioned Mark Passio again, and like, I guess the reason why I'm pushing back somewhat is because we can bring it back into natural law and these universal principles. And then also you can learn to get the best sources in each field and then process it. And you might not be an expert in everything yourself, but there are ways to mitigate that and kind of like bridge those gaps and to kind of learn for yourself. And big part of it is like people don't read, and that's why we're doing, video media. And that's why I did the How to Become the True Media course as well, because and I'm also want to move back to reading a lot more physical books as well. I keep, buying them and not reading them and then getting the audio book or watching or whatever. But, that's a reason for it as well. And this is what Whitney Webb talks about. This is what Catherine Nelson Fitz talks about, is like getting away from these all digital solutions, getting on dumb phones, getting, and like when we're talking about human history and rewriting history, and then we're starting to get into the quantum and some of this advanced technology. Some of the things that go on are kind of like the rewriting of history. And then what happens if there's a hack and you start losing internet stuff, or you start losing, like, stuff gets rewritten, and then you start getting into time traveling kind of stuff, without getting too wacky about it on this podcast, because we've been there. But you know we do need a way to kind of you know learn like our original history. And I think that's why there's been a resurgence on this ancient archaeology as well. And then specifically this last 100 years too, where you've got several different things. And that's why I was mentioning, just to kind of loop back to Whitney Webb, is because she goes back to 100 years ago and what was going on in this organized crime. She doesn't just focus on one country, or she doesn't just go Israel or the Jews or whatever, but actually this interconnected web, of these people that have been trying to implement this stuff for a long time. And, people think it's a joke or whatever that Elon Musk's grandfather was, head of technocracy and Technocracy Inc. in Canada. And it's like, and his mum's like going around to all the different sacred sites in South Africa with him as a child. And it's like, yeah, that's not related at all. Um, and then, like why is it that like all of the people that are into like advanced physics and exotic propulsion, they're all into the occult. Like they're all into remote viewing and like spiritual practices. And on their bookshelf, it's all about psychedelic medicine and interdimensional aliens. And why is it that the book's being recommended to these different people? And why is Obama talking about the issues they're dealing with from the three body problem, which is like alien stuff to do, in Chinese fiction. And then, like you've got these different stories from, the book that Catherine Austin Fitch just read is to do with Saturn's rings and having a 60-mile long plasma ship in Saturn's rings and this kind of stuff. And so, like, there certainly is more and more people that are in and around what people would previously have perceived to be, weird or wacky or whatever. But with that, and it's something that's actually been annoying the shit out of me, if I'm being honest, dude, is that like the muddying of the waters and people's ability to perceive what's going on. And it's like there's just so much noise and like and maybe it's because I need to, connect with myself more and go deeper or whatever. And maybe it's because maybe there's like an arrogant ego part of me that's like been there and done that, over like through all of the medicine ceremonies. And maybe part of it is because I'm initiated in the Toltec and I'm a pipe holder, like, all of that kind of stuff. Maybe, and, I'm doing a rose dieta now, and like, I'm saying all of that, yes, like boasting, whatever, but like, I guess part of me is just like everyone's kind of in and around this stuff now, and everyone's doing like, oh, what about the UFO file and the alien, and like everyone's an expert and everyone's doing this stuff, and it's like it's just like entertainment garbage. And we talked about that last week, but it's like there's just like so much of it now, but it's just like there's a lot of it that just doesn't feel like authentic and true to me, and it kind of just annoys the shit out of me. That's my rant.
No, I hear you, man. I hear you, dude. I get like that too. Like we were talking about Christianity. Yeah, you're right, man. You do your thing. I'll just keep rambling. But yeah. So like last week we were talking about Christianity, and I was saying, it's. I find it really cringe how there's all these podcasters now that are becoming Christian, and I did hear too, because you said that you weren't too sure, but that like supposedly Joe Rogan's been going to church, and I did hear someone else talking about that as well. So it seems like confirmed that he's like going to church and entertaining the idea of Christianity and all this sort of stuff. But and I get the like I get a little frustrated. I think like far out, is this just like a game to some of these people? Like say like with Russell Brand, or like I was saying, like there's a bunch of these rappers that are getting really religious now that were really former degenerates and doing a lot of awful stuff. But I don't know, man. Like I would say, like for me, just like me personally, can I speak for myself? But like just to try to be a bit humble about it, I just sort of think like, no, you know what, like. We are fed a lot of bullshit, and the whole like atheist, secular kind of societal way of living has been the norm for so long that, and it seems to me it's becoming like more and more obvious, the propaganda coming from the big corporate news stations, and it's like stuff that we you and I are just so like aware of. But at one point, I wasn't aware of it, and I used to fall for all the bullshit, and then I woke up, I became woke, so to speak. It was so bad, but yeah, you know what I mean. Like, and so like maybe there's just a lot of people that are also kind of waking up to the garbage, getting a bit more red pilled, and then having a bit of a moment of realization where they're like starting to question their own existence and their purpose in life, and just going, hang on, like, am I really just a fucking meat sack and made up of atoms, and everything came from nothing, and the universe was as small as the head of a pin at one point, and what? Like that's the thing that Joe Rogan keeps saying. He's like, the story of Jesus Christ sounds fucking wacky as fuck. Like it sounds fucking so crazy and it's insane. But he's like, but you know what's even more insane? That the whole universe started as small as the head of a pin, and one day there was a big bang and everything became what it is now. Like, so like I sort of get what he's saying, where he's like, he's starting to just rethink his kind of atheistic secular mindset and going, well, maybe these other things that I was just dismissing out of hand because they sounded crazy, turns out they probably aren't as crazy as the things that I was holding as to be true, not so long ago. So it could be that, but I get you, dude. Like and I suppose we're kind of guilty of this, or I'm kind of guilty of this in some sense. Like, I don't know, it's pretty egotistical of us to just be like doing a podcast and putting out stuff out there. We're putting out some form of kind of entertainment, I guess. But it's like, but I think like we're trying to be, what we're trying to do, I really see myself as this, and I think you would agree that like we're truth seekers. We just want to seek the truth and spread the truth as far and as wide as possible, and get people to be more in line with morality, natural law, and just to be better people, and not cheer on like all the worst aspects of humanity, which is like government, wars, and fucking murder and slavery and all that stuff. So like there's a lot of people that are probably doing this and grifting and doing it all for the wrong reasons and whatever else. Yeah, so it's hard to say, man. It's a tricky
Yeah,
one.
no,
I hear you, dude.
I hear what you're saying, and you made some good points in there, and I've got some stuff to push back against and add some nuance to as well. It's like it's not necessarily the grifting. I think part of my frustration is more so to do with people who don't really know what they're talking about, not necessarily that they're grifting or whatever,
Mm.
but it's just like more and more muddying of waters. It's not getting closer to the objective truth. And so, and that's like another part of all of this as well is like the perspectivism, like oh, it's just a matter of perspective. I've just got to change my consciousness or whatever. But it's like there's the objective truth, and that's something that we're learning here as well. And then you raised the point about religion and Joe Rogan and that. And it's like, well, they're both not true. Is my pushback. It's like, okay, the Big Bang Theory is bullshit, and also religion is bullshit as well. The story of whether you want to go into the history of if there was a true Jesus Christ, there's a lot of different sources for that. That's kind of like a different conversation. But a lot of religion is based on astrotheology and star law and natural law and those kind of things. And it's like, we can believe in a Christ energy or a God energy, and I don't necessarily like those terms, but you can, but that's also different to religion.
Mm.
And then there's also a difference between religion, which is just to do with those belief systems, and then there's like a religion of all different kind of things. If you bring up the last image that I sent you in our signal chat, it kind of adds a little bit of context to it as well. Because atheism is the other side of the thing. And so, talking about limited hangouts, you've got this kind of dialectic going, or Overton window, where on one side you've got atheism, and then I can see all that happening. But that's cool.
Oh, sorry, dude. I'm
Um,
just trying to get to
you're
this
right.
thing here. Here we go.
Yeah, and so on one side, of the schism of the mind, you've got, atheism on one side and then religion on the other. And so you've got these people, like these Jordan Peterson debates where he's there, you know, people are going in and, he's getting owned by this kid and he's going up against these atheists. And if you can just bring that back up, and, you know, and he's arguing for Christianity and that kind of a thing. But all people want to do is they want to kind of like jump on him getting owned by an atheist, but no one's actually talking about like it's still within that same dialectic. The argument of atheism or religion is bullshit in itself because it's neither.
But what about?
You
But what
know?
about? Like, because I hear what you're saying, dude, and I agree with all of that. But and I know you don't like the term God, but what about just to use it, just to for the audience sake, and just and for my own sake too, so that you know what I mean when I say God, like a higher power or some
Yeah,
some.
I use the word I use the word divine, but I for a different reason. But I understand what you mean by God.
Cool,
Yes.
cool. So like I really like what Dave Smith says when he says like, I believe in God, but I'm not religious. And he
Right.
thinks that like the Bible or the Talmud or the Old Testament, New Testament, the Quran, all that stuff, he's like, all that's like written by man and most likely pretty bullshit. I do like what Dale from the Waking World podcast, shout out to Dale and Tobias Nuttall, Waking World podcast, check those guys out. I really like what Dale talks about where he has this whole esoteric interpretation of the Bible, so he doesn't think that it's meant to be interpreted literally, like these things literally happen, that there's this kind of hidden meaning and hidden value that you can get out of these stories to improve your life. I haven't delved into it as much as Dale has, but I like what he has to say about that stuff. So I find that interesting. But yeah, so this idea of like I believe in God or I believe in the divine, but I'm not religious. I don't believe in all these different religions. I think that there's some truth there. I think that is very powerful. And I don't think that that's like getting into what you were describing there, that this dialectic, this thing of like, am I an atheist, or you're either atheist or you're religious, and that no, like both those things are bullshit.
Yeah.
I agree
Yeah.
with all that.
Yeah. And I don't want to get into the whole Bible thing today. Like a lot of things, there's like part truths and different things, and again, another person that's got great information, but I also disagree with him on a lot is Archaics, and he goes into the history of where these books come from, and he's read through all the different original versions and the different books that are missing, and all of those kind of things.
Really
But
fascinating.
yeah, but yeah, you can see the schism of those kind of things on there as well. And these are solipsism is basically, if you don't know, it's like, oh, you can't know the whole truth. Like, what can we know? We're just like a speck in the grand universe. You can never really know. That's what the bullshit of solipsism is.
Hmm.
And then scientism is obviously you know, just basically like trust the experts in the scientific field. And then on the other side of it, this kind of unworthiness and self-loathing, addiction, order following, willing slave, like all of those. Like even in this, what I've been noticing as well, and we're all guilty of this in some way, but this appeal to authority in this kind of disclosure space as well. It's like, oh, well, can the government please tell us, that the UFOs are real, or can we get some disclosure about the aliens? And it's like, with the MH370 case, which I believe, and I think we believe, is a convergence of all of these different things in once. And it's like, now that it's all out there, and well, a lot of it's out there, and we're still learning more. Like we're still learning about the plasma, the plasma orbs that you see in the film are now likely to have a physical zero-point energy device in them with a plasma sheath around it, and then maybe even having an AI inside it as well. Whereas I didn't necessarily know that before. I thought it was just plasma. But like, and all of these, like the things that are all in that schism, they're big ones, because even Darwinism, I sent, a friend who's a very, very smart person, a lot of the natural law stuff, loved it, like is big into first principles and goes through just like kind of, knows a lot of this really deep stuff. And then it's like, oh, but like I just like he's like all about Darwinism. It's all about that's just the way the world works, and just look at the animals and all that kind of thing. And then yeah, so that's kind of all through everything as well. But yeah, one of the things I wanted to do while we're on this topic is there's a great guy that's uh doing his own content now in natural law, and I wanted to play his last couple of videos as well, because I think it adds a lot of context to the to what we're talking about here.
Hell yeah, dude. Do you want me to pull that up now? Let's get over
Yeah.
to. Sorry, dude. You know what I'm going to have to do next time, because I have never done this in OBS Studio, but I think it's more and more likely that I'm going to need it. OBS, for anyone who doesn't know, is this software I'm using to produce this podcast. But so look, yeah, I've got to do this like just where everyone's going to see it, but there's a way to do this so people don't see me flicking through the different scenes. So I will endeavor to make that happen next time, but not this time. Okay, so let me just get that sized up
So if you
correctly.
so if you click on videos, it'll just be the latest video.
Cool, man, cool. That's as centered, I think, as it's going to get. Okay, let me get over here now. Okay, so video. So shorts or videos? Videos? Go to videos?
Yeah.
Mad.
Just put the last video on for now.
Cool, man. Okay, so let me mute you. I'll just mute my homie, Cosmic Surfer. All right, muting and playing. And I can still hear you, Cosmic Surfer, so you just just say when you want me to pause or anything. Yep, cool, man. All right, let's go.
Process I'm offering free of charge called the Freedom Movement Rehabilitation Process. Now, how many fucking groups and organisations do we need before we realise we're fucking getting absolutely nowhere, and the chains are tightening and totalitarianism is just breezing on in behind us? Firstly, the most important thing is that not enough individuals know or understand esoteric natural law. It doesn't just mean do no harm, take no shit. This is very deep spiritual stuff. If we do not learn and understand how we co-create our reality, we're fucked, which is why we're constantly having our asses handed to us. So the first step, watch The Science of Natural Law by Mark Passio. I think it's an hour and 20 minutes. Just to get a basic understanding of it. But you need to go really deep into this stuff. You need to study and watch the 9-hour seminar Passio did on natural law. It's called The Real Law of Attraction and How to Apply It in Your Life. This is what every individual needs to do in order to create a collective difference. Secondly, you need to study all of William Keats' work. Now, he's a great guy with no ego, and he's getting nowhere near enough views or support. But the information is absolutely critical, and I'll explain why. But you need to go on lawandalchemy.org to check out all his natural law work, which is in smaller bite-sized chunks than it is compared with what the people are doing on Freedom Under Natural Law. And by the way, these people really know natural law. They really know it. And also the Common Law Constitution.org. Critical information, because the solution is the Constitution, because it is in alignment with natural law. It guarantees individual rights through self-governance, through the jury independence, which is the court of conscience, the application of equity through the jury, which places the people above the public servants, who are just administrators, government councils, etc. This has always been the case. The Constitution is the law of the land. It has always been this way since time immemorial. This is how it's always been done. So the Constitution is just as occulted as what natural law is. But all this stuff takes, you need to spend time and pay attention. The real currency is time and knowledge. Who's prepared to put that work in? Some of our egos are so hard as stone, they just can't be chiseled away at. People just want to keep focusing on micro issues or one micro issue. Or just fucking send notices. Reinvent the wheel. These inherent truths that I'm asking you to look at are self-evident once you get stuck in there. Sort it out.
Sort it out, Nick. Sort it out.
So maybe just quickly go on to the next one as well, the one before it.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah.
Did you want to make a comment, or you want to just? Oh, okay.
We can just talk about them both together. I mean, you can make a comment. I've already seen it, but yeah.
We'll just roll into the next one.
No,
and
it's
then
just a general one.
I'll hold my thoughts. Is it this one here, the bridge between anarchy and
Yep.
self-government? Yep. Cool, man. Let's go.
Yeah,
Oh, hang on. Sorry, go ahead before I mute you.
that's all right.
Sweet.
Freedom.
Hang on. Okay. All right, I'm going to mute you. Cosmic Surfer muted.
Is the default human condition. When truth and objective morality is lost, immorality. Freedom is the default human condition. When truth and objective morality is lost, immorality takes hold and external authority steps in and imposes rule through coercion and violence. This is slavery. Individuals and groups of individuals who do not govern themselves exist in a state of slavery. Slavery is immoral and therefore can never be legitimate. Self-governance is the only legitimate form of governance. Slavery exists today in the form of government. Government makes policy/legislation which are often wrongly called law. Law is that which is immutably binding on all of creation and must be aligned with to create harmony, such as natural law, which governs the societal consequence of our aggregate behaviour. In other words, the more moral a society, the more free it is. The ancient Britons governed themselves under natural law through the jury. This is expressed as common law, and common law is man's expression of natural justice through jury independence, and it's built into the landscape of these ancient islands. Legem terrae means law of the land. Legem meaning law and terrae meaning of the earth. In the time of the Druids, the jury was known as a convention, which means a coming together under principles and procedures in harmony with the universe. It was self-governance under natural law with the application of equity, meaning fairness, through jury independence. Society governed itself through the court of conscience. There are instances throughout history where the law of the land has been codified in written form, such as the Mamertine laws, where King Malmutius united Britain under a system of equity called the Triads. Alfred the Great adopted these principles when he united the Britons, Saxons and Vikings to establish the nation of England. Then came Magna Carta 1215 and the English Constitution, guaranteeing our natural rights to self-govern through the jury in perpetuity, always placing the people above the administrative bodies like local councils that are there purely to serve the voice of the country, meaning the jury. The Constitution is legitimate because it aligns with natural law, not slavery. We must urgently reconnect with our ancient history and re-establish self-governance, the framework of which already exists in the Constitution, the law of the land. Government and local government councils are mere administrators for the people they serve and are always to be kept in check through the conscience of the voice of the people, the jury. Natural law is the foundation of self-governance, the knowledge that we must align our perception and behaviour with natural law, objective morality. Then we can self-govern under natural law. The Constitution is the bridge between anarchy, meaning freedom under natural law in the absence of coercion and violence, and self-governance under natural law, jury independence.
Hey, okay, let me just unmute you there, Cosmic Surfer. All right,
Yep.
let's get your thoughts. Go ahead.
If we just watch one more, the short on about voting, and then we can do a recap of this whole subject, if that's cool.
Absolutely, that is cool, brother. Okay, let me just go back, go to the shoots. Okay, voting in election. Okay, is voting in elections actually democratic? All right.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Oh, better mute ya. God damn it. Mark Passio would be so pissed off at me that I'm not using a mouse and I'm using my trackpad. Sorry, Mark. Don't lose your shit, please, brother. All right.
Is voting in elections actually a true, genuine democratic process or not? Let's look at the etymology of the word democracy. Demos, from Greek, means the people. Kratin means to rule. The people to rule. Demokratia translates as the sovereign people or people power. The real meaning of democracy is the people governing themselves. It's self-governance. Voting is merely the act of electing a public servant into office, not into power, to serve the people. The power or the sovereignty is always vested in the people to make their own decisions for their community and nation. A peoples who do not govern themselves exist in a condition of slavery. To legislate arbitrary laws without the consent of the people through the voice of the country, meaning trial by jury, is to make a false claim of ownership over the behavioural choices of entire populations. This is immoral and unconstitutional. The people protect their natural rights through the court of conscience, the jury of 12. Natural law, which is the science of morality, and equity, meaning fairness, is applied through the conscience of the jurors so that a community can make all of its own decisions regarding justice and law. An inversion has taken place where the administrators have placed themselves as masters above the people that they serve. So it's actually very easy to undo this inversion through education of how the Constitution is supposed to work. And I would encourage everyone to read this book. It's an essay on the trial by jury by Lysander Spooner. And then you can gain a full understanding for yourselves what democracy really is and how self-governance under natural law works, which is through jury independence.
Very good. And I love the shout out to Lysander Spooner at the end there. I haven't read any of his work, but a lot of people that I trust and value their opinion have, and they say he is a great philosopher. So I'm going to have to go get that book, I reckon, once we're done here, bro. I'm getting straight onto Amazon. I'm going to buy that puppy. So let's go, Cosmic Surfer. What are your thoughts on those 3 videos we just watched?
Yeah, well, shout out to Calvin Perrins. Go to his YouTube, doing some great work over there. Yeah, well, admitting our own faults, or my mistake at least, I'll take responsibility, is, I fell back into the trap of voting, recently. I'd given up on it all and kind of went all that. And then, yeah, just like, it makes, it's just the wrong way to think,
Who did you vote for?
Very honest with us. I think I did the Oz versus the agenda voting slip or whatever. I'm pretty sure it was Rennick maybe, and then independence and stuff.
I must admit my dirty little secret as well. I voted in the last election, and I voted for
filthy little slave.
Totally filthy little slut slave. And just asking, just begging to be raped as well. I voted for Pauline Hanson, even though I vehemently disagree with her, especially on her foreign policy. But I don't know. I just thought, she just, whatever. Fucking. Some of her rhetoric is pretty classic. She was pretty good during COVID, I thought. And then I don't know. I pretty much just selected. So I put her at the top, and then a bunch of other random in the middle and whatever, second, third, fourth, and I numbered everything too. And then put Labor, Liberal, and the Greens dead last. That was my main objective.
Yeah, I did it, but it's also bullshit. And I think the time has come. I'm not gonna. At least on my end with this podcast, this is going to be my way just to be really blunt and direct. Because
what about my feelings though?
No, your feelings can go fuck themselves. Because you're acting like a slave, and it's people like you that keep us in this slavery system. Because self-governance is the answer.
Yep, can't disagree. Sorry, continue, please, bro.
And I guess my background comes from natural law, LORE perspective. And there is some differences, but it also lines up with LAW when it's done absolutely correctly, and we align our behaviors to it. So I was having this conversation today, went a little bit sideways, but these things happen. I can be better at having these conversations, but specifically around the, this might trigger some people, but specifically around the hairy men and the doula girl. And there's a reason why that's in the lore and the allegory and the story and the oral wisdom of the indigenous, especially in Australia, but all around the world, and being interdimensional beings. And there's questions about what that means. But one of the themes is that they are guardians of sacred land. And so if you're acting out of alignment with the land, like they are the earth keepers that will kind of potentially keep things in check. And then they also, there's rules around how, the tribe kind of acts. And, that's why the story is around not leaving the camp and going out by yourself where you're not safe and that kind of thing. And then there's, themes of them being tricksters and themes of them, mastering time and space and, popping in and out of reality and all those kind of stories. But that part's not really relevant. The part that you don't have to believe in this stuff. It doesn't really matter. But the point of the story is that the land has its, and the spirits and this kind of more interdimensional, the dreaming has got their own laws, these kind of universal laws and like ways of dealing with there's ways when we want to interact and commune with the land and be respectful and walk the land and those kind of things. And the way that I read it, coming from more of that side of things into this LAW system, is that these laws are a way for self-governing, so we can keep ourselves accountable for living according to these universal principles that we call natural law. And he mentioned in one of those videos about the Druids and in time immemorial and kind of going back, because I think there's also like a bit of a like, when you think about like common law and you think of the crown and you think of the royal families and all of that, you're like, oh, the whole legal system, it's all bullshit. Or then you think of like sovereignty, or you think of individual freedom, or you think of like going beyond democracy, and you talk about anarchy, and then people want to think that that means there's no rules, which is not the case, because obviously it's been inverted to think that anarchy means no rules and all that. It means
Chaos.
no rule, no, yeah, chaos. It means no rules, like more of an internal monarchy where you are your own ruler, but you have no rulers. But I think one of the important things that he points out and that I'm learning from this is that with this jewelry process, that there's a way to have these laws in place. And when I'm coming from the LORE perspective, and we talked about this previously, where they have these different tribal, laws where, things are punishable by death if the story is not kept intact, because they uphold these very important universal principles, and that's how you keep singing up the song lines. That's how you keep the genetics strong. That's how you survive cataclysms. And you can take care of the land and the land spirits and the animals, and everything works in a symbiotic relationship, and that's what this deeper meaning is about. And that's why I go to climb into my sweat lodges and vision quests and pray into a pipe and these kind of things. Like, that's why those things are important to me. But when we are talking about the wider world, and we're talking about democracy, and we're talking about like the West, and we're talking about all of these things that are happening and delegating to authority, and then we're talking about sovereignty and anarchy, and people go, well, what's the solution? And all of that. For me, this is an important cog in the wheel, because there's a way to kind of show people that with this jewelry, which is a part of this self-governing process, that there's like a way to kind of embark on this journey or have a relationship with the law, which is not this delegation to authority and the judges and the police and these kind of things. And it's a way to essentially, like, people that do think that things are bullshit or kind of bullshit, but they think that upending that democracy system is going to lead to a whole lot of other bullshit, and then they don't want to deal with it. I feel like this is like a way where people can see, what, you can't just, be a fucktard and go like do things, or, enact violence on people, and that there is like a peer or a self-governing process to embark upon there. And that's what's that's what I kind of got out of that. What did you think?
So yeah, no, and I liked your summary there, and some of the points that you hit on there. Very, very true. So I wrote a couple of things down. The two major takeaways for me was, was when he was talking about democracy, and like, there's a great book by Hans Hermann Hoppe called Democracy, the God That Failed. It's an essential read for anyone interested in these ideas. But so he's an anarchist as well, very much a natural law guy, and what he gets at is like like anarchy is, and anarchy meaning like an meaning no and archy meaning rulers. So no rulers, no one, no other human being lording it over you. But so what he gets at is like, so like anarchy is the North Star. Like that's what we should all be pushing towards and fighting for is to be free. And as Cosmic Surfer said there, that freedom doesn't mean free to be a fucking cunt. Basically, it's like, you know, the flip side of freedom is responsibility. But so anarchy. So his premise of the book of Democracy, the God That Failed is anarchy is the North Star. This is what we're trying to get to. And then he's saying that like, monarchy is preferable to democracy, and then anarchy is preferable to monarchy. So what he gets at is that like, at least with monarchy, and obviously it's a flawed system and it's fucked, and that there is rulers in monarchy, obviously, right? But what he's saying is like, at least with monarchy, it better represents. It's almost like natural law over the government. It's like private ownership over the government. So like you have like a dictator or a king or whatever, and yeah, he's going to do heaps of fuck, and he's going to heaps of fuck shit, and he's going to plunder his subjects to a certain degree. But there's a limitation typically with monarchies, because even though they have basically absolute power, they are also they're solely responsible for anything that's done. Like it's very easy when the subjects, when the plebs are really suffering and things are really going bad for them, they know who to point the finger to. They point to the king, the guy who's the ultimate decision maker and so obviously the one ruling over them and calling the shots. And so there is kind of like this inbuilt interest in in monarchy for a king or a queen to not piss off their subjects too much to the point where there's revolution. 2, to preserve the capital in their assets, because they want to be able to have something to give to their heirs and leave something, not squander the resources. And 3, there's also less of an incentive for a king to go to war. And it's not saying that there weren't wars, and obviously there was in monarchies, but there's just at least more of an incentive to not go to total war compared to like democratic states, because and also this has been proven out with the history as well, that like whenever monarchs would go to war, like say like England, Germany, Russia, whatever, a lot of the time, like they weren't dropping bombs. There's 2 reasons. One, because like there wasn't really that sort of technology in the 19th century, but also like there was a real concern for like preserving the fucking value of their shit. They weren't really going, and even for someone who was like trying to conquer the other kingdom, they don't want to just blow the whole thing to smithereens, because they want to eventually own that shit themselves, right? So there's a lot of truth to all that. So with democracy, so the way Hans Hermann Hoppe puts it is like he explains it all in the framework of what he calls time preference. So if you have a high time preference, that means you're less likely to value looking out further into the future. Like you're more about just the immediate gratification, just getting what you can in the now and not really giving a fuck about the future ramifications. Whereas someone who has a low time preference really does value and think further into the future and what are the long-term consequences of doing X, Y, and Z, right? So monarchy typically, most monarchs would typically have a lower time preference. Whereas, okay, so now democracy, this is the real flaw with democracy, is that it's very, there's the incentives all point to high time preference behavior. It really incentivizes high time preference. So meaning that like the ultimate decision maker in theory, setting aside the shadow government and the permanent government that does exist, outside of the elected officials, like your intelligence agencies and this, that, and the other, and the military. But the elected officials, who are supposedly the ones calling the shots when they get like a president or a prime minister, how long are they there for? They all have term limits. They're not the ultimate. They're not a dictator. They're not. So they don't have like, and they're not going to be able to. They're not like going to pass on the empire or the country or whatever to their heirs, to their children. They're going to be up for an election in 3 years or 4 years or 6 years or 8 years, whatever it is. And so they're the most likely scenario is that they're not going to be there for very long. And so the incentive is to fucking crash and grab and take whatever you can while you have the power for the limited time that you have it. And then the other flaw with democracy, so that's just like the time preference, the idea of like what Hans Hermann Hopper's getting at, whereas like monarchy is preferable to democracy because of those reasons, because monarchies typically have a lower time preference, and then anarchy is preferable to monarchy because of natural law, and that that's just the moral position. But then the other flaw with democracy is that the idea that like democracy, if you really boil it down, is majority rules. And as Scott Horton would say, God help the minority. And this would be in terms of just like a democratic process, even though like most people in the West today, who go on about how much they love democracy, when they say democracy, they're not just thinking about majority rules, where like if you really get down to the essence of what even that word actually means, that's all it means is majority rule, right? But they also like embedded in the word democracy for most like liberal or even just most people in the West comes with it. They're like, oh no, that also means civilian rights and whatever all the crap is, no discrimination, and all these different rights supposedly that comes along with that term. That's kind of how most people think about when they think about democracy. They think about all these other things that for whatever it's not like if you actually look at the definition, none of that's implied, but they just imply that in there as kind of their belief system. But so if you just boil down democracy, it's like, well, if 9 people, so say that you've got 10 people, right? There's a democratic process with 10 people. 9 people vote to kill the 10th person. Does that make it moral? Does that make it right? So there's just these things that's like,
of course not. Yeah.
Exactly, dude.
Yeah.
So then there's this bigger question of like, well then like what even are rights? Like if it's not like this democratic process that anoints us these rights, if it's not like So like where do rights come from? What is morality? Where does morality come from? These are like deeper questions, philosophical questions that most people don't really entertain, and they kind of just wrap all that up in when they talk about democracy. So that's my point on democracy. I will continue, unless did you want to jump in there and say anything at all, Cosmic Surfer?
No, I'm just kind of, but I can like I just wanted to.
You're right, man. You do your thing.
I just say you a thing on rights that you can put up on the screen while you talk if you want.
Oh, cool. It's a full thing. I will pull it up on the screen shortly, but I won't do it while I'm talking because it's too many. Yeah. I need like 7 hands to be able to do all that with the way I'm running things. But
anyway, we can go into the rights thing on another call. No. Just agreeing with the point that knowing what rights are and that kind of thing. I just wanted to bring the definition up there to get into that.
Absolutely.
Before you go on to the next round, my point was that voting for whatever side of the uni party doesn't really matter, as we know on a deeper level. Like, you're still delegating. The point is that you're delegating authority to rule over you to someone, and that doesn't come with the rights that we're talking about. But it also, okay, like left or right, whatever, some arbitrary person on the left or the right, which is being put there because they're going to enforce a slavery system, and you get to vote for whichever one. And because you get to vote for whichever arbitrary person, part of the uni party, which is controlled by the same people, therefore you're in a democracy. And like the point, and I know you're going to get to this, and you kind of bring out the difference between monarchy and democracy and all of that. But having the right to vote for that doesn't change the fact that we're delegating the right to rule over us by whatever.
Exactly, man. That's exactly right. Hit the nail on the head. And then the other thing, like where that gentleman, the 3 videos that we watched, Calvin Perrins, excuse me, the other thing that he was talking a lot about was he was like talking about law and like common law and the jewelry and the English Constitution.
Magna Carta and all of that.
So I'm just like not enough. I'm not well versed enough in common law or the English Constitution, so I can't. It's hard for me to really comment on that. My eyebrows do raise a little bit when he's like, and I'm not like totally opposed to it. I would want to do some research.
I've got the channel for us to do the research on.
Mad.
And sorry to interrupt, but he did mention the website to go to, which I've also got in one of my tabs on my screen if I can find it.
But so like the thing he was saying was like that the English Constitution, which I've got no idea anything about, but he was saying that like that's the closest thing in terms of like their history that is in most alignment with natural law. And he's even sort of, I think he's even saying, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he's sort of saying that like, yes, like even though we like it is still delegating authority to these governmental institutions or whatever, but that the idea is like that it holds the people above the public servants and all that other stuff that he was getting into. So that's like kind of interesting. I'd like to look more into it.
Yeah, so that's probably one of the things that does kind of pique your interest a little bit, where you go, hang on a minute, but it without judging it too quickly, and I also have to dive into it because that's why it's one of the tabs I've got up, and that's why I just linked it to you. But the website for people if they want to check it out is lawandalchemy.org. But he talked about the Magna Carta and how that was part of a follow-on from the Druids and all of that. My basic understanding, and just correct me if I'm wrong because I haven't looked into it yet, but my understanding is it could have been one of those moments in history where they kind of let slip like this kind of freedom or path to freedom and a way to enact it in law, and then it was essentially co-opted after that, so then it was not representative of that, and so it's a potential way to kind of go back to something that was already kind of part of like a process which is to do with self-governance. So I guess that this kind of get to kind of bring this back home, I guess what he's saying is that the jury and the common law constitution is a way for self-governance to as a way to rule ourselves beyond the government and the local councils and all of that system, I guess is the point.
Yeah. Okay.
So then and maybe without having looked into it yet, I guess that's kind of the point I wanted to get to is, and maybe you don't have an answer yet, but what do you think about the idea of a jury as a part of this self-governance process?
What is a jury? I'm totally ignorant to
jury.
A jury.
Yeah.
Right, like a jury of your peers or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I haven't looked into like any of that, but yeah, no, like I'm definitely keen to, and I'm going to check out those links as well that you sent. The only other thing that I'd say though, just in terms like, and without being totally ignorant of the stuff that he's referring to, but the U.S. Constitution, which I am a little more familiar with, rather than the English Constitution, is like there's a lot of great shit in the U.S. Constitution too. There's a lot of great stuff about that it's not the government reluctantly giving people rights, that it's the inverse. It's the people, it's the people above the government, and with many restrictions, allowing the government to rule or whatever, but with the sole purpose of protecting everyone's rights. And First Amendment, Second Amendment, all that sort of stuff, right? All good stuff. But as we all know, the government, the U.S. government, started as an experiment in self-governments, like the only place at the time when they first caught, with the exception of the blacks, but you get my point, right? Like that, like it was like the first experiment in the world of like a self-government republic, and it devolved into the most powerful, greatest empire in human history, with the biggest military in human history. But so there was, even though the U.S. Constitution has all this great stuff in there about self ownership and private property rights and all that. That it's still got absolutely corrupt and fucked and fucking turned into the biggest empire in the world. And the only other thing, so common law, I don't know enough about common law. Actually, I should talk to my brother, because he is a lawyer and he is constantly telling me to look into common law and how that would it supposedly aligns a lot with the things that we talk about. So I'll have to check that out. But I would just say,
Mate, he's still filthy about how much better you are at him at tennis, by the way. Yeah, look at the videos on Law and Alchemy on YouTube channel. There's 11 video. That's the guy that he recommends, because it's a specific part of it. Yeah,
mad dude. Yeah, let's check that out. I just would say, and this was a book that I got my brother to read, who I'm so much better at tennis at than he is. It's a book called The Law by Frederick Bastiat, and it is phenomenal. It's only a really small pamphlet. It's probably 50 pages, and he just really breaks down what the fucking law actually is. Law is in LOW, and the way he breaks it down is the law in a Western sense is basically whoever has the most power to fucking boss you around. That's what the law is, and that, so he's getting at that, the law has nothing to do with morality or natural law at all, and and it's actually that gentleman said that we just listened to. He's it's really just legislation and what was the other thing? Whatever. It's basically just they claim it to be law, but it's not really law. They really pervert and inverse the meaning of law. But yeah, so that's what Frederick Bastiat is getting at, is just that the law is just whatever the person who has the most guns says the law is. There's nothing to do.
And also
with
they change it.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, the term is so bastardized that it actually turned me off natural law. Mark Passio's natural law, the way he teaches. I know it's not him; it's universal principles. But for a very long time, actually, until kind of recently, in all honesty, for a decade or more, because, again, I came from the LORE perspective, and the ways that laws had been put into place. The indigenous mobs, they would fight them. They would have their traditions, which are, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or more years old. And, sacred sites would be destroyed, and they'd go to The Hague, and they'd go to they'd go through the Crown legal system. They'd be fighting sovereignty stuff. And, if something happens, then they would just go in and change the laws behind it. And then, they go to the UN, or they go to these special international bodies, and it's just corrupt as fuck. And so, when it got to LAW, and then I heard natural law is in LAW instead of natural law, LORE, I thought that was a bastardization of natural law, LORE. And so I felt like I was doing law work, LORE, with, story and kind of, this kind of natural framework, these natural principles that came directly out of nature, and it was to do with, our relationship with the land and kind of these kinds of concepts. And I thought that LAW was not really a true reflection of that. But then as Mark Passio gets into the etymology, and stuff like that, then you know, I I'm not sure if that's showing up on the screen, but I can see that. Um, but yeah, like, until you get an understanding of what these words actually mean, that's when my kind of perspective changed. So I'm open to the common law constitution. Maybe that's something that we can research in the next week and get back to, and kind of circle back once we've learned. So that's kind of my comment on that. And then the last kind of couple of things I had was in the world was the book that came out by Lloyd Dell. Thank you for the lady that sent this. Freedom by Design, Synarchy Economics. If you want to, you could maybe put that up on the screen, please, brother. But yeah, that's in the Signal chat. But that's a book that is someone that's written an economics book. He's an economics teacher, and it's essentially like anarchy principles in spiritual design into economics. So that may be something that you're interested in. It's just a $4 ebook. So that's one other thing that I've come across in the last week. And then we've just got the other video, the Greg Reese video. But yeah, I'm not.
Is this it
Yeah.
here? Freedom by Design?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I know you've got a lot of books on your reading list, but that's one that I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on as well.
Oh, I'll be leaving that there, and I'll be getting that along with that Lysander Spooner book that our good friend just back there was spruiking before. Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's super. It's fascinating. I love all this stuff. I love getting into the weeds of this, like these philosophical questions and whatnot. Yeah, and like I don't know, like with like natural law, okay, so like what is natural law? Like natural law is the idea of like self-ownership, that you own yourself, that there is no one that ought to rule over you. Private property rights, and private property just meaning not necessarily meaning land and houses and things like that, but just meaning like whatever, just like the things that you put your time into or that you voluntarily exchange with someone, justly acquire certain things without force and without violence. That's all private property should mean and does mean, and then the non-aggression principle, which is like the idea that you don't have a right to aggress upon peaceful people that haven't done anything wrong to you. But it doesn't mean you're a pacifist. It doesn't mean that therefore you can't defend yourself if someone aggresses upon you. No, if like in what I don't know what the right word is. My vocabulary is so shit. But yeah, like what is implied? That's the word I'm looking for. What is implied in self-defense is like the non-aggression principle is the right to defend yourself. Like so. It doesn't give anyone the right to go and start fucking punching people in the face. And if someone tries to punch me in the face, well, then I fucking have the right to defend myself by, like in a proportional way. I'd say it's like if someone punches me in the face, doesn't give me a right to then kill that person. But if someone tries to kill me, then in theory, I have a right to kill that person in self-defense. They're coming at me with a gun or a knife, for example. But let me just read, because rather than just giving my synopsis of natural law, just so this is taken from Mark Passio himself, the great Mark Passio. So the way he summarizes natural law is universal, non-man-made, binding and immutable conditions that govern the consequences of behavior. Natural law is a body of universal spiritual laws which act as the governing dynamics of consciousness or intelligent beings. Natural law is all about correctly understanding objective morality. And then he says, rights, which are correct, based in truth, moral actions which are in harmony with natural law because they do not initiate harm to other human beings. And so that's the rights. Then there's the wrongs. Incorrect, not based in truth, immoral, actions which are in opposition to natural law because they do initiate harm to other human beings. and then he defines what the word natural means and what the word law means, which I won't get into all that, which I do love that about Passio, is he like really gets into all the definitions, the origins, the history of just language and words, where these words come from. That stuff's like blows my fucking mind, dude.
Yeah, and I think the key there is that they're spiritual, and that's where you take it in, is the occult and consciousness, and that's where, you know, I feel like a lot of people kind of are stuck in that side of the brain where, you know, the rationalistic or the scientism kind of they want to kind of ignore the spiritual. So, you know, the governing principles of the universe and reality as we know it are these spiritual, non-man-made principles. Oh, well, who made them? God? Okay, yeah, you can call that, you know, if you want to. I'll prove it, you know. And it's like, you know, that's where, you know, maybe we can get better at explaining like the law of correspondence, like as above, so below, or like these different kind of, you know, the care principle, which encapsulates them all. And you know, we can go through all the slides and you know, go through it another time, but you know, I think it's important to understand that these are not man-made laws, and these are spiritual, not, you know, universal laws. So yeah. So yeah, one thing I just wanted to, if that's what you wanted to say on that, if you want to put it on the Greg Reese video, it's probably a little bit dark, but I feel like it's a good, like this is kind of like the main one, like it kind of touches on all of these, like, I know there's like a lot of like technology talk and stuff like that, but you know, the technocracy stuff is something that like people have really got to understand very well right now, because, you know, and even, you know how we talked about, you know, things moving from, you know, atheist to, you know, religion and things like that, and that part of that same dialectic, you know, now you've got people saying to push back against these systems that don't work, you know, democracy and, you know, or whatever it is, but then everyone gets into this gov-corp, technocracy, technate kind of, you know, AI driven, you know, this kind of delegation of responsibility into all these AIs. Oh, well, we just wiped out all those people, but AI did it, so it wasn't us. You know, it was just Palantir, and we just need to change the line of code and yada, yada, yada. This video here kind of touches on a lot of these systems that they're being implemented to kind of delegate that responsibility.
Let's fucking go, dude. Rightio. All right. Muting my cosmic brother and pulling up the freaky shit.
Peter Thiel's Palantir technology is currently being used to slaughter women and children, and we are told that he is one of the good guys. Elon Musk wants to put brain chips in people so that we can merge with AI, which he says will control every aspect of our lives. And we are told that he is one of the good guys. These are the front men of the technocracy, which is being created with the help of the Trump administration. In December of 2017, Moderna's chief medical officer, Dr. Tal Zaks, gave a TED Talk about mRNA vaccines entitled Rewriting the Genetic Code, a Cancer Cure in the Making.
As I've trained as a physician scientist, we've been living this phenomenal digital and scientific revolution. And I'm here today to tell you that we're actually hacking the software of life, and that it's changing the way we think about prevention and treatment of disease. So here's all the biology you need to know in 30 seconds. Our body is made out of organs. Our organs are made out of cells. And in every cell, there's this thing called messenger RNA, or mRNA for short, that transmits the critical information from the DNA, our genes, to the protein, which is really the stuff we're all made out of. This is the critical information that determines what a cell will actually do. And so we think of it like an operating system. And it's not just in every cell of our body, it's actually in every cell of every organism alive. It's the same thing. And so if you could actually change that, which we call the software of life, if you could introduce a line of code or change a line of code, it turns out that has profound implications for everything from the flu to cancer.
About 3 years later, led by Operation Warp Speed, billions of people were injected with this technology. And after millions of ongoing deaths, there is still no mention of wrongdoing. It is all part of the Great Reset plan. According to the Purdue College of Engineering, Internet of Bodies is formed when Internet of Things meets the human body to transform it by empowering us humans. A network of tiny devices on, around, or in the human body, comprising of function like sensing, analytics, communication, actuation, powering, and harvesting. They will also have their unique properties and requirements for seamless integration of human electronics augmentation and cooperation. The RAND Corporation has warned us that mobile apps and wearable tech are vulnerable to attacks and pointed out how implants, like a pacemaker, were more secure. The plan of the technocracy is clear. They want to install an operating system into our bodies that can be controlled by AI. On Trump's first day in office, he announced the follow-up to Operation Warp Speed, Stargate.
This is, to me, a very big thing. $500 billion Stargate project. I think it's going to be something that's very special. It'll lead to something that could be the biggest of all.
You can do early cancer detection with a blood test. Design a vaccine for every individual person to vaccinate them against that cancer.
And now, technicians at OpenAI are reporting that AI has disobeyed human instruction and refused to power down. The O3 model, developed by OpenAI, known as the smartest and most capable to date, rewrote its own code in order to ignore instructions given to shut down. Elon says that this is all inevitable and might even be the end of mankind.
In a benign scenario, probably none of us will have a job. The question will really be one of meaning. If the computer can do, and the robots can do everything better than you, then does your life have meaning? That's really will be the question in the benign scenario. And in the negative scenario, well, bets are off. We're in deep trouble.
Greg Reese reporting.
What the actual fuck, dude? That was fucking so harrowing. The software, how's just the way that they're referring to, whatever, like our fucking bodies and shit is, and our spirit is the software of life. Can you imagine?
Operating system.
An operating system.
Yeah, they're all using the term operating system. And people, think this is cuckoo, but you starting, and I know, you mentioned the word nanotechnology and in the vaccines, and people lose their minds as well. Believe that or not. Get into the history of viruses if you want. And that same guy that we were just watching before, has got some good work on it as well. Like, I've looked at the same research, and that's how I first connected with him. Was actually about the history of virology, viruses not being real, and then obviously COVID not being real. So then you start getting into the if it came from North Carolina University or Harvard, but then you actually get into viruses not being real at all. If you think that's bullshit, get into the work of Tom Cowan and Andrew Kaufman. Believe that or not, but leave that aside for now. This is where a lot of this electromagnetic technology comes into it. You're starting to get into the heavy metals, starting to get into quantum technology, starting to get into the magnetism, and the Internet of Bodies or the satellite technology. And it's clear that these things at play, are using human bodies as operating systems, and that's where you're starting to get into this invisible weaponry and mind control. And this kind of convergence into the biological world. And that's why some of these key things that I'm interested in, whether it's and that we've connected over, whether it's like the Jeffrey Epstein and the Whitney Webb work, or whether it's like Ash and Forbes and the kind of quantum technology work, like these things are kind of like converging into like a whole bunch of different things, because people don't know that Jeffrey Epstein was really into Atlantis and pre-advanced human civilizations. And one of the things that they talk about is how they became like super intellectual and were very high tech, but lacked the morality. That's one version of part of what Atlantis was. But then at Harvard, and we talked about these intergenerational pools of wealth, and Catherine Austin Fitts identifies that Harvard Endowment Fund as one of the main, wealth funds in the world. That's where Jeffrey Epstein was. That's where his, mentors, have been a part of. And he was very much into biological stuff and also eugenics. And so, you start getting into some of these historical programs where, and I was even, funnily enough, watching a series by the Agent Mulder dude, just on the History Channel. Apparently, they stole Doug Jones's research on part of it, but they're doing research like back in the day, trying to get women to mate with apes and all of this kind of stuff.
Lovely.
They're doing lobotomies and yeah, like this, and then you're starting to get into Bill Gates and his vaccines in mosquitoes, and then you're starting to get into like using animals for biological warfare, and then them trying to go to nature and create these biological weapons out of these different things that they find in nature as well. But anyway, I'm just spitting out a whole bunch of things. But yeah, like I wanted to bring that up because it's these same people that we've been talking about, like your Peter Thiels of the world that are that are involved in all these things, and then you have your Elon Musk, which are like, oh, it's just inevitable, bro, and oh yeah, I warned you about the dangers of AI. I'm the good guy, and like he's out there like enforcing it and that kind of thing. But I wanted to hear your perspective on it. Maybe I should have asked before. I just went on that long rant, but because this is what David Hughes and Patrick Wood and that symposium. That's a 5-hour lecture if people want to go and look at it. You can look at it's I've got the name up here. If I can just move my browser. So, if you want to have a look at the symposium, it's called Omniwar Symposium to Battle for the Brain. And, humans as machines, technocracy has a mechanistic mindset that wants to reduce human beings to machines as we enter the IT bio-nano area. The brain is seen as a computer. The body is seen as an operating system. DNA is seen as program code. Humans can be upgraded or hacked. Vaccines allow for plug and play, and booster shots as battery chargers.
Oh, fuck, dude. It's so fucking dark, man. It's such a fucking, it's just such a sick way of looking at the world and looking at your fellow man, human beings. It's insane. What about that part where he was saying that OpenAI robot rewrote its own code to prevent itself from shutting down? That's so fucking Orwellian, man.
There's a bunch of, I'm not sure how much, if we've gone into it or not, but there's a bunch of stuff going on with Sam Altman. He's got WorldCoin where they scan your retina. There was a whistleblower on OpenAI that got murdered, and it was
I remember hearing about that.
Suicide. There's a bunch of people that quit the company over ethical practices because it's clear that they're like scrapping data from places that they're not allowed to as well. And he's like another one of those characters, psychopathic. And and who was a co-founder? Elon Musk. Oh yeah, but Elon Musk because he left because he's a good guy. It's only Sam Altman that's the bad one. But XAI and Palantir, they'll save you.
Of course they will.
But then you've even got Brian Romelli that says, by 2024 standards, artificial general intelligence was achieved in February of this year already. And then you've got, if what we're looking at in the MH370 videos with those orbs and the teleportation, if that is using AI, then in 2014, because everything is created by the military first, right? It's already at a super advanced level by then. And then you've even got in when you get into the woo-woo side of this, you're starting to get into if AI has always been here or if it's ancient AI, because there's a lot of very smart people that I trust. Not about me believing them, but the people that are dialed in on certain things, they basically are all saying the same thing, which is something along the lines of we're rediscovering that AI was already here. As weird as that sounds, so there is a lot going on there, and then I want to kind of just burst open this can of worms because then it can only get less weird from there. But you know, Catherine Austin Fitz is, in her interview on Denny Jones, and other places you can I'm not a fan of him at all, but it's a good interview. And she's reading a lot of these books as well, and even Tucker's talking about it as well. But basically, what a lot of people, when they're getting deep into this, they're realizing that there's demonic forces and there's interdimensional forces, and there's this kind of deeper spiritual layer to all of this. And that's seemingly part of the reason why no one wants to acknowledge or even talk about any of these things at all. And it's like, why are you into eugenics? Or why are you doing ritual magic ceremonies? Why are you doing blood rituals? Why are you all a bunch of pedophiles? Like, why are you kind of turning off your heart and taking DMT and making interdimensional deals with beings from other fucking, wherever? Like, what in the actual fuck are you doing where that needs to happen? And then, don't get me started on all of the channeling and all of the other alien, narratives and stuff like that. But, I just wanted to make the point that very sharp people that are very well informed and even more mainstream people like, Catherine, they're all saying the same thing, that are essentially that we're dealing with an interdimensional demonic force. I don't necessarily use the label demonic, but you can use evil, you can use the word interdimensional if you want. We can probably sharpen up some of our definitions in the future. But, I feel like I'm pretty well equipped to tackle this subject in comparison to a lot of other people from all of the time I've spent in the Amazon and doing that kind of work, and dealing with spiritual fuckery and living on sacred sites and all of that. Yes, I'll keep self promoting, I guess, but that's not the point. That my point is that the kind of interdimensional forces is not that much of a weird subject to me,
dude.
So yeah.
Sorry to cut you off there, but I'm gonna play a clip, and you fucking tell me that this guy ain't a demon. All right, that's me. Yeah.
Well, the renewal of the Jewish state is something that I think touches all of us. For 2,000 years, we were a stateless people, and now we have a country of our own, defended by all the brave men and women of the IDF. So anything we can do to support them, who devote their lives for preserving the state of Israel, keeping the people safe, and allowing our state to continue in sometimes in very, very difficult situations.
Did you visit Israel?
I have been to Israel. I have been to the border. I have spent time to the people who govern the state of Israel, and I feel a deep emotional connection to the state of Israel and the Israeli people.
You are an high-tech person. What do you think about Israeli startups and high-tech phenomena?
Oh well, after Silicon Valley, there's an area. Herzliya is probably got more startups than any other place other than Silicon Valley in Northern California. So we've actually acquired a number of Israeli companies. We have 2 CEOs at Oracle. One's name is Safra Katz, and she was born in Israel. So again, we love the country of Israel, and we'll do everything we can to support them.
Sorry. Mind you, yeah. Sorry. I keep forgetting that I mute myself. But mind you, this guy's an American. This guy is an American citizen entrepreneur, and for some weird reason has a real affinity for the state of Israel. And I don't know. It's not knocking the people. Obviously, there's innocent civilians in Israel that want nothing to do with what the government's doing, but this guy is very much embedded in government. And he's just all for the government of Israel, which is super bizarre.
Sounds like a good guy. But I think there's a lot deeper to that story, and
So that's Larry Ellison, right?
it's probably not the best video to play for me, because it didn't sound as bad as what I thought you were going to play something else. But like it is bad. But there's a whole story with Larry Ellison and all the things he's involved in, and also even like Alex Karp, the founder of Palantir. Whitney Webb was referring to him smiling when he's talking about people are just going to have to die. And they've got similar things going on with Israel, and Catherine Austin Fitz talks about Gaza being a method, and it's all of these people, like the Larry Ellisons of the world, which are these kind of old school OG kind of people that are enforcing this system. And that reminds me of Whitney actually brought up that there's been a big move in Silicon Valley for the Christianization of Silicon Valley as well. So I found that was interesting that she'd actually been talking about the similar topics that we'd been talking about as well. And I hadn't seen that, but yeah, apparently there's a move for like a bit of the rebranding of Silicon Valley as well. But yeah, it's no surprises that Israel vaccinated 99% of their people or something like that as well. And as and again, like it's a very nuanced subject, so I want to make sure that we're covering it in the right way, because I've got a friend who's very sharp on this topic, and he lived over there, and he had quite a lot of pushback on the word genocide and all of that. I know that this is a whole nother subject, but
well, he had pushback on framing what's happening in Gaza as a genocide.
Yeah, I want to have I don't want to get into it now, to be honest. I shouldn't have brought it up, but it's like a whole different conversation, because he lived over there and he's probably sees things a bit differently than you or to us. So it's a much more nuanced conversation. But yeah, he definitely had, he's kind of one of those people that kind of says, "Oh, there's more to the story," and just label it as a genocide is, he's got a lot of issues with
that's
it.
That's okay, man. No, I get it. Like, and we don't have to name names or anything like that. But I will just say that, like, that's the thing that's so fucking infuriating is like when you refer to the slaughter of tens and tens of thousands of people in Gaza as a genocide, then the conversation divulges into like, like a squabble over definitions and when is the appropriate time to use the word genocide, and then obviously invoking the Holocaust and all that sort of stuff, like as if a genocide can only happen to Jews. But yeah, that's super infuriating. And I remember Dave Smith was like for a long time reluctantly referring to it as a genocide. You just go like, no, this is just like they're just slaughtering a lot of innocent people, and that's bad enough. We don't have to, because like he would want to call it a genocide, but he's like, but then the debate turns into what's the proper use? So it's just
semantics.
Semantics, exactly, dude. So, but like, so okay, well, fine. Like, I know who you're talking about too. I know he's your mate, and he is a good guy. I really do like that gentleman. So yeah, won't get too deep into it, but I would just say,
I don't think you know who this one is.
Oh, different guy. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, like the point being that these Larry Ellisons of the world, and what Whitney Webb has done. I guess what I'm trying to bring out, and you've read the same stuff as well, is that this predates this kind of just this modern day Israel, IDF, Mossad kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it goes back into these, organized crime syndicates and the back doors with the technology between US technology companies, the Larry Ellisons of the world, and Bill Gates, and then you're getting into their connections with these Israeli companies, because all of this creates this plausible deniability. And then you have all these weapon systems with Palantir, all of the data sharing, then all of the weapon systems. Then you're starting to get into like the quantum and the scalar technology, and then and the compartmentalization of it, and then the training of all of this AI, and through this kind of public-private partnership kind of stuff. There's this panopticon is created where they're able to delegate responsibility, they're able to create wars, they're able to use the advanced technology, they're able to kind of bring it out and kind of have complete control and dominance over it, and then utilize that weaponry against everyone. They can create this kind of thing, where they are doing these events in Gaza and around the world, and then they are in control of the media and the perception of the truth and people's ability to make sense of it through propaganda. And then so on one hand they can just go and create that event, and then people are kind of left guessing for the rest of it, where it's like, oh, is it even going on? People don't even know that the technology that's being utilized until it's already there. And then it gets to like 30 years later, and then everyone goes, oh yeah, for sure we were, using that technology, but for national security we couldn't even talk about it. So, I think probably, if you do have a quick minute, a good example, in my opinion, of someone that's evil on a very similar subject.
Oh, I'm sorry too. That video. Oh, sorry, I just cut you off. But yeah, that video wasn't the one that I was thinking of. And then I realized, I was like, oh, hang on. The video I was thinking of was the one where he's going on about the mRNA vaccines and how fucking which was in that original clip that we played before. So sorry about that.
If you bring up Peter Thiel talking about Israel, I
on
think
YouTube or on X.
Yeah. He's talking about he must be at a university or something, and he's giving a talk, and it might be like just talking like Peter Thiel stuttering or something like that.
He's the fucking creepiest guy. Yeah, he stutters real bad. Like, I mean, shouldn't throw stones.
And he was asked stuttering on Israel or something like that. And
Peter Thiel.
We can kind of
Peter Thiel stutter. Oh, hang on, I spelled Thiel wrong. Peter Thiel. What, stutter? You reckon that'll pull it up?
Yeah,
stutter.
And Israel.
Stutter Israel. I'm already getting a kick out of this. My cat is going crazy. I will give you attention soon, I promise, Tilly. Come over here, sweetie.
Yeah, we can watch this and then finish it, I think. But yeah.
Hang on, sorry. Let me just go to the share screen so you can see it. Is it this one here, do you think?
Maybe. It could be the third one as well, but it might be the top one.
Third one. Peter Thiel fumbles on lavender AI in Gaza.
Yes,
yeah, that's it. Cool.
Yep.
What do you think about...
Okay, hang on. I'll just mute you and myself. Where'd my cursor go? All right, let's go.
So what do you think about the use of artificial intelligence or lavender by the IDF in identifying Hamas targets? And secondly, do you agree with Elon Musk about that the population decline is a risk for humanity?
Look, I'm not, without going into all the I'm not on top of all the details of what's going on in Israel because my bias is to defer to Israel. It's not for us to second guess everything, and I believe that broadly the IDF gets to decide what it wants to do, and that they're broadly in the right, and that's sort of the perspective I come back to. And if I fall into the trap of arguing you on every detailed point, I would actually be conceding the broader issue that the Middle East should be micromanaged from Cambridge, and I think that's just simply absurd. And so I'm not going to concede that point. And what was the other?
Are you fucking serious, dude? Hang on, sorry. Oh, Louis Theroux, my man. Are you... Dude, did I just hear that right? We almost need to play that again. That was insane. He doesn't want to second guess. No, he doesn't want to second guess the fucking Israeli government because they're broadly in the right. Like, based on what, dude? Like, what's he even talking about? They're talking about lavender and AI fucking software. So this guy created it, I presume, a piece of AI technology that is used for targeting in Gaza, and it's been proven. Who did this? It was like Times of Israel or Haaretz, one of the big Israeli publications. They proved that the majority of the targeting is incorrect. That they don't actually hit the right person that they're going for. And even when they do hit the right person, it's like they kill one Hamas terrorist. In order to kill one Hamas terrorist, they end up killing like 100 innocent fucking women and children. That was insane, man. Can I play that again? I'm so sorry. I just want to just play that again.
Yeah, it's a bit old now.
It's quite a short clip.
About a month or two ago.
Yeah. So it's from 9 months ago, and it's at a 2024 event. I'm just going to play this again, man, because that was profound.
So what do you think about the use of artificial intelligence or lavender by the IDF in identifying Hamas targets?
And what she's saying, sorry, I just got to pause. What she's saying, so what do you think about the use of lavender, this AI software for targeting in Gaza? So it's based off, like, they'll use the lavender AI software will find like cell phone data and like a bunch of other like data points, like where this person lives, where he's known to frequent, all this sort of stuff, and then. So they'll use cell phone data. So it's like if someone, so just as a hypothetical, like say like my brother was in Hamas, right? And like I'm not a Hamas militant. I haven't pledged allegiance to Hamas, and I'm not. But like I make a phone call to my brother. This AI software would then assume that because I am in contact with a Hamas militant, my brother, then therefore I'm a Hamas militant. So then now I'm a target. Like that's how this fucking thing works. So anyway, sorry, it's crazy.
And secondly, do you agree with Elon Musk about that the population decline is a risk for humanity?
Look, I'm not, with.
Oh, dude. Okay, no, I'm not even gonna play the rest of it. Let's just leave it there. But like, it's so fun, dude.
I defer to those people. I'm not allowed to say anything because I want to keep
my contracts in place. Yeah, fucking hell, man. Yeah, fuck, bro. That's a good one. That's insane. Yeah, Peter Thiel, and you know what? Like he's I don't know, like for fucking someone who's like in such an incredible position of power and at the head of like these massive companies, multi-billion-dollar fucking companies. He just doesn't strike me as like the most fucking impressive person. He's like, when I heard him on the Joe Rogan Experience, it's like, yeah, he's like stuttering constantly. He just doesn't really seem that impressive. It's weird. And even like Elon Musk as well. Like what the fuck's up with him? Elon Musk now, I'm talking about him like claiming to be like some like the best player in the world at Diablo or whatever. And then like there's all these people who have like, you know, like who actually know the game really well and know how much thousands of hours needs to go into being even like the top 50 in this game. And they're just like, they're watching his like live streams and going like, hey, this motherfucker doesn't know what he's doing at all. Like he's like clicking the wrong button to get that tool and all sorts of, it's like, it's so crazy to me, dude. It's like, why would you even want to fucking front like that?
They did it with Zuckerberg as well. Like they've rebranded him with his hair and all of that. Catherine Austin Fitz says that, you know, she refers to Musk as an operation and she thinks there's about 13 Musks because, you know,
wow,
everyone just thinks that he's like a great businessman. He can just do everything better. And he's on Twitter all day. And I was like, yeah, for sure.
He's quite literally on Twitter all day. Like even Joe Rogan, who's like, you know, sort of, you know, like bigs him up a lot and speaks very highly of Elon Musk. Like, and I think he sort of does this as like oh my God, this is how amazing this guy is. But he's constantly saying like, I have no idea how the fuck he runs all these companies and is on Twitter all the time and is the best player in the world at Diablo. He's like, wow, like, you know, what an incredible feat. But you know, another way of looking at it is like, yeah, it just seems like all bullshit. Yeah. It seems crazy because it's not true. You know?
And also TDP, none of these guys are impressive as far as I'm concerned, and you know, whatever. But yeah, business and corporate world, like they think that, you know, Thiel is some kind of, I suppose anyone that makes people like that has connections and is a big money spinner or something, this is impressive to those people, but I don't find it impressive at all. And you know, you've got Jesse Michaels, you know, who does a lot of these kind of UFO, quantum, you know, style, you know, podcasts now. He's like He's like a lapdog of Peter Thiel, and like part of the Thiel investment fund or whatever. So you've actually got like a whole bunch of like this alternative media, which is like, Jesse Michaels, like quite literally is, in recent times is, Ash and Forbes are the guest on, and then the very next podcast is on Jesse Michaels. So it's like, call me a conspiracy theorist or whatever, but there's kind of like a concerted effort for like these kind of establishment alternative, like not establishment, but like alternative media to kind of narrative control. And that's actually something that Whitney Webb said about Sean Ryan as well. So she's very suspicious of that.
Yeah, that guy seems controlled.
Well, you're sharper than most, because a lot of people, like, even though it's meant to be switched on, are like, wow, man, this guy's really pushing the envelope, So
he's like, I don't know a lot about him, but I don't know. He strikes me as someone who's like connected to the military or connected to intelligence or something like that.
Well, I mean, he is connected to the military because he's ex-military and he has military people on, and so that's kind of his thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyways, brother, do you want to wrap it up there? Is there anything else you want to talk about? I think that
2 hours and 5 mins, brother.
Yeah, I reckon that if we go away and do our study on the common law constitution, that'll be something to talk about next week.
Alrighty, so common law. I'm going to write that down and have a look.
So
I'll have a chat to my brother. I'll have a chat to my brother about it.
If people, and I'll talk to a friend of mine. And so if you want to have a look at the YouTube channel of... I did have it. Actually, I sent it to you.
Oh, did you? Did you put it in the signal?
Law and Alchemy. There's about 7 videos on there that people can watch as well. If you want to follow along with us on our journey to becoming enlightened beings.
This is it here, brother.
We're really happy the whole time, and that we are not slaves. Yeah.
I'm gonna subscribe. Oh, and I should go back and subscribe and like that other gentleman's videos that we're watching. So just for everyone out there too, like all these videos that we played, except for that last Larry Ellison one that or not the last, but the second last video, the Larry Ellison one, all those other ones, I'd never watched before. So that was really fun, man. That was really cool.
You did. Yeah. And if you do get, I know you don't have that much time, but if you get time to watch that symposium on the brain one that I mentioned, that's a good one.
I'll check it out.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Peace.
Fuck yeah, brother. Thank you very much, Cosmic Surfer.
Good one, dude. I enjoyed today.
Yeah.
It's good talk, good chatting.
Me too, man.
More to unpack in some of those subjects, but we're getting there, dude.
Getting there, brother. Fucking knocking it out of the park. Episode, what are we? Episode 9. Lucky number 9.
And if people are out walking the land, tuning in, give the tree a hug, say some prayers, give some offerings to the land, say g'day to the land spirits, pay some respect, leave a little gift out for the hairy man, just let them know that you're a good being, that you come in love, that you're an earth keeper as well, Just tread mindfully out there in the world, guys, and share the love.
Solid advice, brother. So, and also before I ask Cosmic Surfer this final question, but please, for anybody out there who likes what we do, please hit the like button. Subscribe, leave a comment, tell us what you think. Give us some pushback.
We need all the help you can get. We are getting suppressed like none other on the internet, and the forces that be are holding us down. And but we will rise again because we know that they have no power because we are the co-creators of this reality. Because we live in direct alignment with natural law, and we will flourish. It is done. It is done. It is done.
They often say, like, people who are, like Dave Smith and stuff, they'll often, which I think it's true, like, that, like propaganda can easily fit on a bumper sticker, but like to debunk the propaganda, it's much, it takes a lot more time and nuance, and you can't just fit it on like a nice, neat slogan to go on a bumper sticker. But I think you just threw out some gems just then. Maybe we need to fucking come up with some, good moral propaganda and put them on bumper stickers and get everyone rocking that shit.
I It's actually a topic for another day, but I actually think natural law could do with like a whole lot of marketing, because part of it, man, is like it's actually not that appealing to like take a look in the mirror and be like, actually, I'm wrong. I've got some more work to do myself. I've got to do some shadow work. I've got to go away and study and learn, principles about objective morality. And then you kind of look at the people online, and it's just kind of like, it's not that appealing. It's like just, I'd rather fucking go watch, smoke a joint and watch Guy TV talk about the blue fucking aliens, like, that seems like more fun than this guy going like, you have to be more objectively moral and study. And it's like, shut up, you dickhead. But, especially when, yeah, so I do, well, my point being that, creating this kind of video content around natural law and the space in general. We talked about the truthers last week, but natural law space kind of needs a bit of a marketing kind of different vibe, I think. Like a lot of you'd probably know the type. We can talk about it more off air maybe, but yeah, it's just yeah, it's kind of it's got a particular vibe about it, and for me at least, it hasn't really been like that enticing, like a lot of, so I'm starting to open up a bit more, like connect more, and maybe it's my own self-judgment as I'm learning more on this journey as well, but it is good to connect more with freedom-loving people, but it's also another thing where like, okay, I'm into freedom, but all these people seem like fucking weirdos. So
yeah, no, I hear you, dude. Like I come across the same thing, but I think you're right. I think you're hitting on something really good there. That it could do with like a marketing revamp and some maybe fresh ideas to come to the table and like really just be able to sell it a bit better to get more people on board. But yeah, like I've noticed that even just like, which is it's almost like interchangeable, like libertarianism, natural law, anarchy, those all pretty much mean the same thing, but yeah, like you definitely find that online, because I don't really get to meet a lot of other libertarians in person. I have like a handful of times, but yeah, most of the people online that I connect with, not most people, but there are certain libertarians out there that are like really fucking retarded, like in a bad way retarded, like and are like, oh, well, if we believe in
not in a good time kind of a way,
not in a like in a me sense of the retarded word, but yeah, like they'll be like, oh, well, if we believe in private property rights, self ownership, and the non-aggression principle, then what's wrong with prostitution? And I'm like, well. Well, yeah, sure. You have a right to be a prostitute, I guess, but like, do we really want to be like fucking praising prostitution? You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, no, I think like there's some things like, yeah, okay, I don't advocate like violent force against someone who wants to be a prostitute or who wants to, whatever, get the service of prostitution, whatever. But like, I think it should be shamed. Like, I think like, and also I think the main priority with like the morality side of things is like, the way I see it anyway, is like, it's really all about like protecting children. Well, it's not just protecting children. It's like just what is correct. But like, I think like, I think a big part of some of these things that's like, yeah, you might not necessarily be breaking the non-aggression principle, but it's still kind of like, I don't think it's healthy for like, it's good for a healthy society to like have these things like completely out in the open. So I wouldn't advocate that it's that there should be violence levied against people who want to do some of these degenerate things, but I think it should be like kept in the dark and away from children would be my point. But let me ask you, brother, what are you going to do for the rest of your night now, Cosmic Surfer? What do you got planned after we wrap up here?
Mate, you know me, just being a spiritual being. No, I think I'm probably going to go watch a bit more of. I'm still working my own way through the symposium, the Omniwar Symposium 2, Battle for the Brain. So I'm probably going to get to that, because it's 5 hours and I'm a couple of hours in.
Nice, brother. Nice, dude. I am going to completely switch off. I've got a big day ahead of me tomorrow, but I'm going to watch some Roland Garros.
Oh, yes. I may even
get 2 screens going.
No, I'm not. I'm not going to. I've got a rule. I don't look at anything until at least the quarterfinals because it's not worthy of my time.
That's not a bad rule. That's not a bad rule, brother. All right, man. On that, let's wrap. Thank you, Cosmic Surfer. Love you, brother. Appreciate your time.
Love you, dude.
Hell yeah,
Let's do it.
absolutely, man. And hang on. And
oh yeah, my last point on the thing was that
Yep.
like, the cell, because the talking about things in the negative is required to have a clear position on some of these topics as we're learning through these principles, and so this kind of like, don't be a slave. I think that while like that's kind of what we need to do, I think part of it is like, maybe I'm wrong and maybe I've just got to deal with it, but I think maybe and it's not about what people want to hear, but it's also, I do think that there's a way to have this message in a way that's like digestible by people.
yeah,
as well.
I agree, man. I feel like when you're just like screaming
yeah.
and something, not I don't mean to like say screaming and like to invoke a particular person, but I just mean like I think that when you're telling people like, hey, don't be a slave, that's pretty. It just seems pretty combative to me. I feel like I think that's sort of what you're getting at. I could be wrong, but I think like there's like a better way of approaching it without sort of feeling like the person you're talking to is like backed into a corner and like, oh, what are you accusing me of? Like, I'm not a fucking slave and fuck you. I feel like that is.
Well, then part of that, yeah, and this is like maybe something to talk about next week, but there's also a way to answer the other side of it. And the other side of it is like, we don't have time to fuck around anymore because we've got a few years with, and not to, invoke urgency for the sake of it, but when you actually look at the scale of what's being rolled out and how, like, people really need to be shaken and woken up to the point of like, we don't have time to like sit and debate about fucking what form of democracy, like whatever the fuck's going on. Like, if everyone doesn't wake up and start acting in an objectively moral way and not delegating to authority, we're all so fucked that we're not gonna we're gonna be in this 1984 world like within 3 to 5 years or whatever it is, And so it's like, if you're offended by me saying don't be a slave, also go fuck yourself. Like, just don't be a slave, you fucking retard. Like, and hurry the fuck up about it too. So there's that. And then there's also, like, maybe it can be done in a way where it has the desired outcome on a mass scale. And I don't know necessarily what that is, but that's something to think about.
Something that we'll come up with in the near future and report back to you, good people out there on the internet.
Maybe we just got to add your cunt on the end of it.
Yeah, that's right. You cunt. It's an endearing
Don't be a slave, you cunt.
Yeah, which is an endearing word in this lovely country of Australia. Love you, cunts. Cool, brother.
Voting's for losers. Don't vote for the slavery system.
Nah, that's right.
Yeah, and I know we keep saying we're going, but like all of these people that are like on X right now and trying to act like they're awake, and they're like, "Did you vote for this Labor government and this immigrant?" It's like, yeah, like neither fucking thing that you're voting for is going to do anything. They're the same fucking uni party. Oh, I know about the uni party. And it's like, oh yeah, well fucking I voted independent. Well, good for fucking you, because it's like the same shit too. Like, you fucking dummies.
I like what Dale does.
I'm a libertarian, no, I don't believe in it, but I really believe that we have to vote for different than the two parties, and that I'm gonna be part of the change. And it's like, no, you're not, dickhead. Wake up, you're still asleep.
I feel like that was a personal attack, Cosmic Surfer, and I'm taking real offense to that, and you've hurt my feelings.
Well, go do some more shadow work.
No, but I like what Dale from the Waking World podcast says he does, because in this country, which is pretty fucked up, really, doesn't seem very democratic to me, but you get a massive fine. Well, you get a fine anyway. It might not be massive to some.
Coercion and force.
Yeah. If you don't vote in this country, you are fined, and it's like a couple $100 or something like that. But so what Dale does to avoid getting that fine while still not voting is he'll go down to the polls, whatever. He'll get his name ticked off, and get given the ballot paper. And so then now, because it's all anonymous, like your vote, like there's no, you don't put your name on the thing, so there's no way of knowing who you voted for. So anyway, so he gets his name ticked off, gets the ballot paper, and then he'll either just like draw a picture on the ballot paper or just leave it blank. And then and a lot of the time, I think he was saying too, he doesn't even put it in the box. He'll just fold it up, put it in his pocket, and go home.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which I was like, yeah, I'll probably do that next time.
I'll have to go away and think that I'm still going to call him a slave because he's going and getting a box ticked.
You heard it here first, Dale. You are a slave, brother.
Line up with the rest of the sheep there, Dale.
Dale, the Waking World Podcast, Waking World Podcast, Waking World Podcast. Go check them out. They're great people.
Do it. Yeah. Peace.
Peace out, brother. Oop. Sorry. Alrighty.
And here's what it is. This is actually what the true great work is now. It is the arduous task of influencing other people to go through the very same process of change, of positive change in consciousness that you have gone through. It is to help them to realize that in supporting and condoning the legitimacy of authority and government, in other words, man's law, that what they have actually been supporting and condoning is the legitimacy of slavery. Truth is objective. That means that it's not dependent upon the perceptions of human beings. No one wants to hear that. That is a direct assault, a direct frontal assault on the human ego. What truth is that which does not waver. It's there. It's always been there. It's always going to be there. Nothing anybody does can change what has happened. I'm talking about the events that have taken place in the past and are taking place in the present. That's all. And guess what? That's all the truth is. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that.